Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third Tech Talk in the UI Library's Data Hub, the UI Library Data Hub's Tech Talk series. So these talks aim to expose the UI community to topics, issues, and tools that will help them produce their own work. To that end, this week we have Dr. Jim Ekins, Ekins,
Ekins,
Ekins,
close
an
enough.
extension educator, here to talk about how educational videos can help scholars increase engagement with their work and some of the workflows required for making that happen. So, Jim, take it away.
Thank you so much there, Norman. I really appreciate the time and you're reaching out to me. This is the fun part of my job as an extension faculty. So yeah, Jim Ekins, area water educator for University of Idaho Extension. And I am also, and you can see that on the slide, that I am an educator. I'm an extension faculty, and I'm a self-taught video producer. And one of the things I want to be really careful about here right off the bat is acknowledging that I don't have any formal training in video production. Well, hardly any. I don't have any formal training in the theory of movie making, photography, videos, things like that. I am very much self-taught, and I'm going to approach this as such. I'm not going to pretend I'm somebody like Rue Wood down at BSU who teaches video production as a faculty member down there, and we have folks here in theater and arts. We have people in communications. We have people in journalism and mass media who are much more eloquent than I am and know much more about the real nuts and bolts of creating really top-end award-winning videos and such. What I'm going to talk about is the creation of educational videos for the public use and some of the decisions that you have to go through in terms of how sophisticated do you really want that video to be. My contact information is right here. I'm an extension educator, so I absolutely have the gift of gab. I love chatting with people and talking with people and emailing, all of that. That's much better than me sitting with my mind in a spreadsheet trying to write a grant and all of that. I have to do a lot of that, but I'd much rather be talking to you. So at any time during this, I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat, and I'm going to try. I can't see my chat right now, but that's okay. If you raise your hand, I will try to answer questions on the fly, and I'm super happy to answer questions after I'm done. I don't have a whole lot to present, but I've got a few slides here that I'm going to present, and then hopefully engender some sort of conversation. And if we get out of here a little early, great. So that's kind of where I'm going to be coming from. Let's see if I can figure out. There we go. I use Prezi. I don't use PowerPoint if I can help it because Prezi is just different. So a really quick recap of Extension. We are our own best kept secret. We are a part of a nationwide system of extension departments through land grant universities. We basically are the part of the university that's not on the university campus. We are, out off a campus. We have 42 of our 44 states in Idaho have an extension office, and every one of those offices has a tenure track faculty in it. And a faculty member and somebody who can connect regular people out there with the knowledge created by the university. We also have 15 research centers across the state. And there is there's a research center on campus, and CALS, College of Ag and Life Sciences, that's kind of where we're housed, has that. But for the most part, we're off campus, and our funding comes from national and state sources that want us to basically stay off campus. I'm not allowed to teach formal classes. I do guest lecture, but I do that in the same sort of light that I go to any organization or group or people and do guest lectures. One of the most important things that we do is to write scientifically accurate papers, brochures, publications of all sorts that condense the science into readable, usable, publications. We have bulletins, and I've written a few of those. We have green thumb how-tos. I'm not enough of a green thumb to write those. We have curricula. I've written a 4-H wildlife and water habitat curricula. I co-wrote it with my friend and colleague, Dr. Marcy Galbraith. Master Gardener handbooks, and fairly recently, the peer-reviewed educational video series. So we are now creating educational videos as a peer-reviewed product. And again, that's really important for the public, but it's also really important for our promotion and tenure process and all of that. So Extension is we're a big organization, and we do a lot of really cool stuff all over Idaho. So when and I started working with the Adobe Creative Suite back when I was an AmeriCorps member at PCEI there in Moscow back in 2006 and 2007. And so you'll see I use Adobe Premiere Pro, and we'll use that in a little bit or get there in a little bit. One of the first thing, if you are doing science communication, and you've got to understand who your audience is and where your audience is. And Extension we used to be known for, we go out into the communities, into the Grange halls, and do in-person presentations and programs. We do field tours and show people how to farm. How do you keep the soil from eroding or blowing away? How do you raise dairy cows? How do you do food processing? How do you safely can your foods without getting botulism in there? How do you create things like quilts and things like that? How do you take care of your animals? More and more people aren't going to in-person events. More and more people are going to, raise your hand if you've gone to YouTube University. We need to be YouTube University. Okay, we need to be getting the knowledge out there to the people, and in a way that is approachable. And one of the first things I started doing once I got my feet under me as a new extension educator about 10.5 years ago was, hey, let's create some videos. Let's see what I can do to create videos. And then, so you've got to think about how much time and energy, how much do you want to put into that video? And then how do you get people to watch, where you put it, and all of that. Those are all of the kind of decisions that we'll go through here in today's episode. And what you see, the picture down here, that is a part of my Premiere Pro desktop, my control panel when I'm creating one of my videos. So we can start out simple. The lowest cost, lowest time is to simply do a basic screencast. When you're working in PowerPoint, you can record yourself, just like I'm being recorded now via Zoom. In fact, you can do the same thing in Zoom. Actually, like what Norman is going to essentially do is take this video, maybe do a little bit of editing just to sort of get rid of the ums and the uhs and any awkward dead spaces, and then he's going to put it up onto the web. It doesn't take a whole lot more than just the presentation that I'm doing now, and just recording it in Zoom and creating a video file and putting it somewhere where people can access. The screenshot I've got here is one of my colleagues, Bill Lillybridge. He's a hydraulics engineer with the Soil Water Conservation District's Soil Water Conservation Service. And last year, for a stream restoration workshop, an in-person workshop that I do, Bill couldn't make it. He got called to Washington, D.C. that day. And so he did a screencast of his PowerPoint presentation. He recorded it, he sent it to me, and I was able to provide that in lieu of Bill being there in person. Not as good, but in an in-person situation, that worked pretty well. Okay, so again, it's low energy output, pretty easy to do. You can do this in any of a number of existing programs that are probably already on your laptop, but it's a little boring. It's just the person talking and their slides going through. If you're an instructor and if you have a captive audience, it works pretty well. But if you just put this out on YouTube, people are going to get bored to death. Also, it's a little too long, for that kind of thing. But it's really great as a component of a class, and it doesn't take too much more time. Now, you've got to have that script. You've got to know what you're going to talk about to a certain extent, but you don't even have to write out that script completely. Just have your outline, and maybe that's already been done as a part of your PowerPoint. Let's go to the next level of sophistication. You can start producing your videos. Now, I've got some QR codes here. Feel free to scan those QR codes. They should bring you to playlists that have some of my videos in them. Again, I didn't grab a lot of us extension educators are doing videos. Ron Patterson and Jason Thomas, they're doing some really cool videos. There's many others that are doing videos of different kinds. And many of them are doing produced educational videos that aren't necessarily peer reviewed, but are a little bit that are produced, and they're a little bit more interesting to watch. Um, and so it takes some, and what I call post-production or video editing, that's where a lot of the time comes in, smoothing it out, adding in different layers of, say, instructional images. Like maybe I'll say something, I'll have an image, but maybe I'll layer an illustration on top of that, or maybe I'll layer some type, some text, or an arrow pointing directly at something in the video or on a still image. It's very easy to assemble a video using a whole bunch of still images. You might have heard of the Ken Burns effect. And that's just you put a video or an image as part of the video, and maybe it's sort of zooming out slightly. So at first you see a person and then you start seeing the greater context around them. Or maybe the other way around. You start zoomed out and slowly bring that image in. So there's the context and then it starts focusing in on a person. And again, I'm thinking of some of Ken Burns' famous movies that he's made, his documentaries, where a lot of it is made up of still photos. And if you just put a still photo and then another still photo, another still photo, and then another still photo, and you're telling a story, it might not be interesting enough to capture the viewer's attention for any length of time. But if you have some motion in there, very gentle motion, and you use that motion to specify what you want the viewer to see, whether it's zoomed in on something and then zooming out to get that context, or vice versa, then you can use that little bit of subtle motion to do so. I've made some non-peer review videos. We do snow science through the Confluence Project. We bring high school kids out. We go out in the snow. And we found that these high school kids, they would have no concept of what they were going to be doing. Even we would tell them, wear warm clothing. Don't wear shorts and Crocs to school tomorrow. You got to wear your hiking boots and your snow pants or something like that. Until we created a video that actually showed them, oh, we're going up into the actual snow and we're hiking in a little ways and we're digging in the snow, to get that into their minds. It also helps to volunteers to understand what we're doing so that they can answer the questions of the students. I've got a Project Wet activity video series online that teaches people at a distance how to do hands-on Project Wet activities. I did a promo video for one of our professional development national conferences. So these can be very specific, very focused on one thing, and they do take some time to create. My snow science video, the first iteration of it, and luckily I'm able to kind of continually kind of improve it. But the first iteration, it was one of those weeks between Christmas and New Year's, and I just sat down in my office and I said, I have one job between Christmas and New Year's. I have this 1 week. At the time, I didn't have a lot of vacation time, so I just wanted to work that week. And I said, you got 5 days. Let's see if we can create an educational video. And it is. It's about at the time, it was about a 15-minute educational video about this. And so there was 40 hours for 15 minutes. You can see how much initial time I had to put into it. And most of that was in the kind of the post-production, because I had all of the assets already ready to go. We'll talk about assets and that kind of stuff in a little bit. But yeah, these could take some time to produce, but people are going to watch them most likely. If they have a specific need or interest, they're more likely to watch something that has some production that's a little bit smoother. And then there's the kind of the third level, sort of, is that to go through the peer review process. Now, these are not at the same sort of level of robustness as say, a refereed academic journal article, okay? But they are peer reviewed by other extension faculty who make sure that it's readable, make sure that the science is good, make sure that the message that I'm getting across is the message I intend to get across. And of course, any editorial sort of hiccups, they can catch those. So I try everything I do, I try to get a peer-reviewed something out of it. It also looks great. I mean, it's actually absolutely essential for our promotion and tenure. It's essential for me as anybody, as a faculty member at the university, to be creating peer-reviewed or refereed materials. It's just part of the job. We're more than teachers, we're faculty. We have to be providing the public with this sort of knowledge in ways that the public can understand it through the peer review process. And I actually helped Extension Publications years ago pioneer this process of peer reviewing. What we do is we write a script. We peer review that script. And you can see this is a version of my script that I use a spreadsheet. And I have a column for audio scripts, the audio portion. I have a column for still images, graphics, typewritten stuff on the screen, and then I have a video describing or a column describing the video clips. And so I can, it's very easy to assemble everything when I have everything neatly organized in a spreadsheet like this. This helps me to understand what I'm saying. When I read this aloud, when I read the audio script column, I can get a sense of how long it's going to take me. What's the video length going to be? I try to keep my short videos to about 2.5 minutes. That's kind of a long video, actually. I like Mark Twain and some others. I wish I could write an even shorter, script, but I sometimes don't have time. So I try to write as concisely as I possibly can, and I know how long that's going to take. And then I have a script that I can just rattle it off using a microphone in my computer. Some people, and I know some of my colleagues, they don't really like to have a script. They like to talk right off the cuff so that it doesn't sound scripted. I think that you can write a script, you can be a little bit colloquial in the language, still have the scientific acumen and accuracy, and not come across too rigid. I mean, that is a problem, is that it's very easy to come across very rigid. You've seen all of those, 1970s safety videos, and they're reading off of the script, and it's just like, and this is what you do when you enter a doorway. It's just kind of boring and almost laughable these days. So I try to, and put some inflection. And when I read a script, I try to make sure that I'm reading it in a conversational tone. I also try to write it so that it's somewhat in a conversational tone while still adhering to the science and to the message that needs to come across, and try to be serious enough at times when I have to be serious. Okay, I'm going to keep going. Some of the things you've got to keep in mind is that highly produced scripts require an enormous amount of time. I'm pulled in a million different directions as an extension educator. Any extension educator, many times our county offices have a single educator in that office, and they have to do 4-H, youth development stuff. They have to go to business meetings. They have to go to lunch and learns. They have to create new programs. They have to write, peer-reviewed stuff. They're pulled in so many different directions that it's really hard to dedicate big blocks of time to writing these scripts. When I run a citizen science water quality monitoring program. It used to be a half a day in the classroom and a half a day out in the field, in the stream, practicing all of the different things. And they were fun days, but they were really long and really exhausting. And there was a lot that I had to try to put together, and a lot of travel and all of that. My saving grace, in a way, and I've been thinking about putting the classroom part into a series of videos. I thought, every time I do this, I forget something. I don't quite hit something quite right. Maybe one day I'm just a little more tired than another, and I don't quite hit my script just perfect. And so when COVID came along, that was kind of an existential crisis for me. What is an educator who does investigative, hands-on, place-based education? What do you do when you're stuck behind a screen? Well, I spent pretty much that entire year of 2020. Well, first of all, I finished a PhD. And secondly, I created a bunch of online curriculum for teachers and homeschoolers and people that needed it. And then I dove into the creation of the videos for Ida H2O. And I pretty much quit counting when I got to about 1,500 hours. I mean, I spent that entire year creating these videos. Just making the script was about 2 weeks of work. And I literally took the PowerPoint and that I used, a series of 7 PowerPoints, and I just typed them out. as though I were there, presenting and reading. And then I was able to take that and actually smooth it out and organize it better than I ever had in person. And once I did that, I actually produced myself. I sat outside on our deck here of the Harbor Center, and I produced my videos. That only took 3 hours to create 2.5 hours worth of videos, and then I had to assemble everything, and then do all the post production. And that's where the time was. It was a long time. It was hours and hours, days and weeks of just losing myself in the post production. Many of my research colleagues just you almost they get to almost a flow state, like diving into a big data set and just losing themselves in big data sets and doing the calculations and all of that. I was never that kind of academic thinker, but when it comes to doing video editing, I can lose myself in the editing, and 20 minutes later it's 4 hours later. And so I that's kind of what I did that year of COVID. Is I created these videos, ran them through the peer review process, and got that done. Another thing is that if they're going to be peer reviewed, if they're going to go out into the public sphere, everything has to be, every copyright permission needs to be taken care of. I'm a pretty good photographer, and I always have been. And so I actually created almost all of my own video and still image assets. And I videoed all of the different parts of Ida H2O, either myself or others or whatever. And I was able to create my own short video clips where my intern and I would work on that, or I didn't have them. So I was very fortunate to be able to use my own photos. I just wrote a crayfish guide to Idaho, and I had to get some professionally done photos from some professional photographers out there. And it took me a long time to get those permissions. So you got to chase after those permissions, and every little thing like that you've got to keep track of. So keeping files precisely organized, keeping everything super organized is incredibly important, and even more so if you outsource the video production, the post production, that is. But if the way that the video software works is that it grabs the different files. It has to know where those files are. So you've got to have those files really well organized. And same goes with all of the details like permissions. And then what software do you use? Now, University of Idaho has a campus-wide subscription to the Adobe Creative Suite, which is good because I use Adobe Premiere Pro. It is a very, very powerful, but also pretty complicated system. It's sort of like flying a Boeing 767 versus a little Cessna or something. It is very powerful, but it has a lot you got to learn. Now, I'm self-taught. Luckily, I learned how to use some of the other Adobe Creative Suite things back in 06 and 07 when I was an AmeriCorps member. I'm pretty good at what's it called, InDesign. And so Premiere Pro isn't too far off. I also know the basics of things like GIS software, where you're basically putting one layer and then another layer, you're layering files upon files. And that's what you do with a video, is you're layering files on top of each other and stringing them out and connecting them together. And so I've gotten very used to Adobe Creative Suite. There's a lot of other video editing software out there. iMovie, there's other Adobe products out there too. There's a bunch of Linux run, like open source programs out there. I don't know much about that. I've never been much of a Linux guy, but there's a lot of things out there that I think you can get without paying too much for. Although I don't know anything about them, and so I'm not the person to ask. There's these others too. I think was it Camtasia or was it Roxio? One of those that recently the UI has decided not to use anymore. I think we got a big grant to use Camtasia, and that 2-year grant has run out. I think that those are going away. But there are other things out there that you can use as well. Again, those are all just decisions that you've got to make. What works for you? Is iMovie good enough? Is the maybe the what you have on your phone, maybe that's good enough. I like to have a little more powerful software. And then how do you actually do the assembly? With my first video series, my first peer-reviewed videos, it was before I was really good at Premiere Pro. So I assembled all of my assets very carefully, and I outsourced them to the UI Video Production Center. And then I got them back, and they were great. They did a great job. It took them a little while, but that's okay. I had that all kind of factored in, and it cost about 750 or so dollars for a 3 or 4 minute video to do that. Um, but again, that's because I had everything really well assembled and extremely easy for the video producer to just simply assemble it all, put it all together. Everything was in a file. Everything was numbered exactly as it would go into the video, and they were able to just grab it and kind of go and mush things around and do that work. If you need to have somebody not just do the video post-production or editing, but also do some of the production, they're going to have to go out and create those videos, and that takes even more time. So that'll be much more costly. The other thing is I don't have I don't have the files. I can't go in and edit that series of cleaner water faster videos that I created. Again, you could get to those via that QR code. That's in the hands of the video productions folks, and I'm not sure I have permission to even ask for those. It's okay. They're final. They're good. They're out there. I'm happy with them. But with IDA H2O, with some of the other videos, I like to go in and update them. And so after I got better at Premiere Pro, I was able to go do that. So that's a big thing. Do you outsource it? Do you not outsource it? Do you outsource part of it? Do you narrate it yourself, or do you hire a narrator? With Chris Schnepp's uh, forestry BMP video series, they hired a professional narrator. It sounds great. The narrator has a much better voice than any of us extension educators do. It just sounds wonderful. It's great to listen. They have a nice, deep, rich voice, and it's really good to hear. If you don't, is sitting in an office like this with, I got a lecture going on next to me, and I can hear it through my headphones. You might even be able to hear them through the microphone. Is there a place where you can get away from the echoes? Do you record your entire narration, in your closet with all your clothing that that deadens any echoes that you might have? Or is there a studio somewhere? 4-H used to have a studio over at Post Fall, so I could go, and it was a sound deadening, sound dampening, studio with a really good microphone. You'll have to adhere to UI branding if you do any kind of UI video, certainly a peer-reviewed video. They can help you with that. Our publications office can help you with that. We have branding people who can help with that. And then what do you do with the video? Where do you put it? Do you put it on your own YouTube channel? Some of my videos are on my own YouTube channel because they're not peer-reviewed, but Extension can link. I can link to those videos from the website. With my peer-reviewed videos, they go up on the CALS, College of Ag and Life Sciences, Extension on their YouTube channel. They have publications YouTube channel. They're all up there. And what I do is I create my own playlist. The problem with them being up there on that YouTube channel is that they're kind of hard to find. They're buried under a whole bunch. My older videos are buried under a bunch of newer videos, and you've got to scroll way down. You've got to kind of know that they're there. So I create my own playlists, and then I send those playlists out to people, and usually that works. Although again, sometimes they come up as private, or I don't know. It doesn't quite work as well as I would hope. Maybe I should get UI CALS to get me some playlists. What else? And then long term. One of the things of course, we get, our jobs rely on us creating peer-reviewed products, but our jobs also rely on people actually using those. How do I keep track of that? How do I get more people to watch the videos? You can boost them, and I have some funding in an external grant that I wrote to boost all these videos that I've been producing about source water, wellhead protection and aquifer protection and stuff. I like to try to get K-12 teachers to use my videos. I send them my video like, hey, can you use this? Are you teaching about water? Can you use this video that I produced? My entire IDA H2O online class, the foundation of that are the 7 modules of that are underlain by the 7 educational videos that I produced. So anybody that takes that class is going to watch that video and get that eyeball on. And then can you take portions of the video and use them in different ways? The beauty of having control over my own video production is some of my IDA H2O physical, chemical, water educational videos. I was able to take excerpts of that, repackage them for the crayfish workshop, online workshop, where all we do is dissolved oxygen and pH. in terms of water quality. And so it's very easy to take those narrow parts of my videos and squish them together in a new format and fairly quickly get them out. That doesn't take as much time as the original creation of the videos. And I get any eyeballs that I get, that anybody that clicks on and watches my videos, I count those as indirect contacts. I don't know who, I don't know what the demographics are of the folks that are watching those videos, but I know that somebody has watched those videos. I count that as an indirect contact, that that I have gotten my information out to people, to new people, to new audience, and that's super important. Okay, that's about all I've got. I'm 37 minutes into the program here. I'm gonna stop my share, unless you want to stare at that. And I can always go back to that if you'd like. But I'd love to open it up to questions, have a little chat. If not, it'll be a pretty quick pretty quick presentation here.
I actually have a couple if you don't mind.
Sure, you bet.
The first one is, how do you choose when a project or a research output or something is appropriate for a video? So do you have an audience in mind before making the video, or do you make a video for a project and then find the audience after the fact?
That's a good question. Everything we do in Extension drives from identified needs out in the community. And so, I mean, the whole IDA H2O program, that came from people saying, hey, we really ought to have a statewide citizen science water quality monitoring program that's really accessible to people, and not too technical and not too heavy on the the equipment use and everything. So those videos were directly tied to an identified community need. I don't do as much research, even though I have about a 15% scholarly and creative appointment. That's the usual research appointment. It is satisfied through this sort of thing. So I go out and look for other needs. And so, like, I wrote a grant to a DEQ EPA source water drinking water protection program, and I said I'm going to do these videos, and I reached out to Panhandle Health District, who is the Idaho Health District responsible for helping protect our aquifers and clean water. And they said, hey, these are the topics that we'd like to see, get out to the general public. And if it comes to research, again, it depends on if whoever is doing that research, or wants to get that research information out to specific audiences, then they will create the video based on that. So it's usually based on either viewer interest or some sort of a community, some sort of a need that's out there.
And then, if anyone doesn't mind, I have a second question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. The second question is, you talked about having to make the videos as short and concise as possible. Are there ever topics where you have a video and you think, oh man, for this whole topic, it would be, a 15, 20, half an hour video. So I'm going to break it up into little smaller video clips and then produce those? Or does that make those videos are presumably more specific? So maybe they would appeal to a narrower audience and get less engagement? I'm sort of wondering how you.
It's a good question. Yeah. I think if you can get people to watch the string of videos, then great. That's a hard one. I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that. I just sort of assume that people have a short attention span because I have a short attention span. And if I can get somebody to watch a 2-minute video, but then at the end I say, hey, check out the next video right after it has more information on this, or goes into more detail, or continues the story and highlights something else, then hopefully they'll watch that. But I don't know. Again, this is where I'm a social scientist, really. So
Mm.
I just and I know that just people just don't watch long videos in general. Um, if I'm trying to learn something, I try to find the shortest video I can find that's relevant. Uh, and that psychology, social psychology about uh, learning tells me that I got to be quick and concise.
Mm.
But I don't know. I don't know how. I don't know if there's a point where if it's too short, too narrowly focused,
Mhm.
do you start losing engagement?
Mm. Makes
Somebody,
sense.
somebody we should get a social scientist to research that. Oh,
Indeed,
wait,
yeah, a good
I could,
paper top.
yeah, we could do paper top. I mean, that's an interesting thing. I don't know.
Okay,
Again, I err toward going short if I can.
that's fair. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it if you'd like.
Have you ever used AI, or what do you think about using AI in your production?
I've never used AI. I used AI in I guess I used AI in the creation of this presentation that I did yesterday. And I'm not real happy with it. Actually, I'm normally happier with Prezi. I normally do it all myself. Um, I don't have any experience with AI.
And for videos, can you use your phone, or you need a professional video camera these
No,
days?
I can use my
Phone
phone.
is,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I have a very basic still camera. It's a 4/3. Uh, uh, it's not even a full frame. It's not a DSLR. It's a mirrorless Olympus uh, camera, and I use it for almost every bit of my videos. So I don't have anything super complicated. You can definitely use your phone. Absolutely, you can use your phone. Phones these days, the optics are getting really good. Now I have an old iPhone uh, SE because it's the cheapest phone I can get that runs that works. Um, I don't I don't think I don't know. I don't want to ever have to try to afford a big expensive iPhone 16 or 15 or 14 or whatever they are up to now. Uh, so I can get okay videos off of it. And there are ways to stabilize the phone. Get one of those little gripper things and get some sort of a tripod. I think the biggest thing is having good audio and having steady video. If you can put whatever you're shooting your video on, um, have it be steady. And there are ways you can do that in post-production. But have that video as steady as possible, even if it's relatively low resolution video. If the audio is good, you're good. People will watch relatively low, kind of okay. They won't watch shaky video, and they will not watch video with bad audio. You've got to have good audio, and you got to have still video. You got video that doesn't shake. And so I just put it on a tripod and I shoot my whole scene. And then when I go in, so instead of trying to zoom in and out using the camera, I zoom in and out using the software in post production. And so the one thing I like about Adobe Premiere Pro is many cameras take their videos at different frame rates. Um, a video is nothing more than a whole bunch of still images all put together like one of those old flip books, and the frame rate could be 25 frames per second or 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second. And a lot of those video editing software out there, you have to have the same frame rate for all of your video clips. And sometimes I have a video frame rate of 60 from my phone and 25 from my camera and 30 from, a television program that I downloaded or something like that. And so I have all of these different frame rates, and Adobe Premiere Pro can put them together and turn them into a video somehow. I don't know how it does it. There's magic behind the scenes. But that's why I use that. Is because I can use a video from a whole bunch of different sources.
But other than videos, do you also produce posters, brochures, and other kinds? Yeah.
Yep. I produce all of those posters, brochures, newsletters. I don't do a lot of newsletters because I have a hard time being consistent with anything. I just wrote a 128-page curriculum, 4-H curriculum, and I just wrote I just got it back and with minor edits of the Guide to Idaho Crayfish, and that's going to be about I can't remember, 25-page, 30-page extension bulletin. Yeah, so I produce a lot of that stuff. I have written, or I've been on the team to write a referee journal article or two. Very few. It's not really my specialty, but I've got a couple of those under my belt. A couple of Journal of Extension articles, and one in Bioinvasion Records of high school kids finding crayfish down in the loose and stormwater ponds for the first time in Idaho history. Or these invasive crayfish called the red swamp crayfish, as opposed to the native crayfish. Maybe I'll do a video on that. Other questions? These are great questions. Anything else? Any other thing?
Is that actually your office window?
Yeah.
Looking at, no
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
that's the Spokane River right behind me. I'm about maybe a quarter of a mile down from where it dumps out of Lake Coeur d'Alene. That's the Highway 95 bridge that you see the cars going across right behind me.
I'm a little jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to look away from it because it's really distracting in the summertime. I'm sitting here trying to write a curriculum, and there's people out there on their stand-up paddle boards and their jet skis and their canoes, and sort of keep that behind me. I let y'all get to watch that.
All right. Last call. Any other questions? Okay. Well,
I appreciate everybody being here and listening to me, and I hope this was useful for you.